Welcome back to the Global Business Report here on Arise News. I'm Idia Isian, coming to you this morning from Nigeria's commercial capital, Lagos. Relief felt by Nigerians following the agreement among organized labor, organized private sector and the federal government over the new minimum wage dispute might turn to despair as the federal government said yesterday that President Muhammadu Buhari was yet to accept the new national minimum wage of 30,000 naira. Mohammed stated the government's position while speaking to State House correspondents in Abuja, explaining that the committee's report submitted to the president on Tuesday was a recommendation that still would have to be considered by the president for final decision. Meanwhile, organized labor has threatened to go on strike if the federal government fails to approve and implement the 30,000 naira minimum wage recommended by the tripartite committee. The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation on Wednesday announced that its crude oil and gas export sale in August 2018 was $470 million, indicating a surge of about $78 million in comparison to July oil and gas export figures of $391.91 million. The NNPC monthly financial and operations report for August 2018, which was released in Abuja on Wednesday by the corporation's group general manager, Undu Ugamadu, indicated that crude oil export sales contributed about $337 million, representing 71.83% of the dollar transactions, when compared with the $283.43 million contribution in the previous month. China is gradually becoming the most attractive source for foreign direct investment in Africa. According to a Washington Post publication dated January this year, China's FDI to Africa between 2000 to 2014 was about $30 billion, with an average of $2 billion flow each year. In a recent gathering of African leaders, while the rest is loan. For more on this, I have the Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Muda Yusuf, joining me in the studio this morning. Good morning, Mr. Muda. Welcome.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Global Business Report.
Great to be here. Yes.
So there's, of course, a lot of negative perceptions that surround receiving loans from China versus receiving loans from the West. What can we do to ensure that this time there's a win-win situation, especially from Nigeria, from this in terms of collecting these loans from China?
Yes, thank you very much. Currently, our debt stock and what our indebted to China currently is less than 5 billion. 5 billion US dollars. So we are talking about something that is less than 7% of the total debt stock. So when people talk about China debt, the kind of risk or the kind of burden it imposes on the economy, it's not, sometimes we overstate it.
Okay.
You know, when you relate the total amount of debt to what we are owing to China. Secondly, debt stock of 73 billion US dollars. What do we have to show for it?
Exactly.
Because that is a big issue, and that is the question we should be asking. If you are so heavily indebted,
and there's not much.
we need to show, there must be something to show. You know, the thing about China debt, at least from the ones we have seen in recent times, is that most times they are tied to projects. Airport or power plants and things. For an economy that is so heavily in deficit of infrastructure, if there's anything we need, I think it's that kind of debt that you tie to project, as against the kind of debt that you just throw into your budget.
Yeah.
I mean, domestic debt now is actually the biggest burden that we have. The domestic component of the debt is 70%.
Okay.
And the amount we are using to service debt now is humongous. It's almost equivalent to what we are using for 2018 budget, for instance. The total allocation to debt service was about 2 trillion naira. out of a total budget of about 9 trillion. And the total capital component of the budget is about 2.5. Total capital budget. And it's almost 40% of our total revenue. Sorry. So the challenge of debt servicing is a very big challenge. And it is not arising so much even from this China debt that we talk about. True. And we have a budget where almost 80% of our budget is on recurrent spending. In other words, even a whole component of this debt, we are using it to run the business of government, which is not supposed to be the basic principle guiding the utilization of debt financing.
But you said yourself earlier
yes.
that, of course, we've done business like this with China before, and yes. of course, we're looking at about $30 billion already, right, that China has invested in Africa. But if we cannot account for this now, how are we going to account? And if it was on a project-by-project basis before, and now it's going to be on a project basis as well, if we cannot account for what has been done so far, shouldn't we be worried about the fact that the West actually even monitors the debt that they give us, as opposed to China saying, oh, they are responsible for doing their own due diligence and ensuring that, you know, the money is used for the right things. If they cannot pay it, we'll collect collateral later.
No, the approach of China is different now.
Okay, how is it now?
In fact, in the last engagement, when we had this China-African forum in China, the presidents of China and the Chinese president emphasized that whatever facility they are giving to African countries should not be spent on projects that are frivolous.
Yeah.
He was very specific. And if you look at our own experience in Nigeria, most of their facilities or debts that they give to Nigeria are specific to projects. They are specific to projects. So I think we are getting more. It's a decision of the country.
Exactly.
We have a responsibility, Nigeria and other African countries have a responsibility to determine what kind of debt they will take and for what purpose they will take the debt. I mean, nobody can impose any debt on anybody.
True.
So it's a function of the judgment of the leadership and the commitment of the leadership of each country to ensure that there is maximum value from whatever facility you take, either domestically or externally. So the responsibility still lies a lot more with those who are in the leadership of each of these countries. So there is no basis to either be blaming the West or be blaming China for something over which you have some control.
But it's not even really about allocating blame.
Yes.
The leadership should act in the best interest of the people.
Exactly.
And we see a lot of times that it doesn't even create jobs for Nigerians because,
yes.
of course, China provides their own labor for these projects. So now that we've said that we've not seen anything, we have nothing to show for the projects that we've done so far, and then we're not even providing jobs for Nigeria, it's almost like, why should people be happy and why should people not be critical?
No. Let me make myself clear. When I say that there is nothing to show, I'm talking about the data that has been accumulating up until this point.
Past. Okay.
I told you total debt is 73 billion US dollars. You must be able to yes, you must be able to point to something. That is not the case because the bulk of the debt has been used to service the running of government. Because the cost of governance is very high. And that is what we are paying for now. So the difference between that and going forward is that whatever debt you must incur, and that is what even the Fiscal Responsibility Act states, that if you must incur a debt, the debt must be specific to projects. And preferably projects that can build the capacity of the economy. And that is speaking more to even infrastructure development.
Okay, so let's talk about this international trade fair that is ongoing, right? It's a
Yes.
10-day trade fair.
Yes.
Now, the expected number of exhibitors was 3,500 and visitors 500,000. Have we been able to reach these estimates? And what is the attendance like in comparison to previous years?
No, the attendance has been quite impressive.
Okay.
And from the numbers you are seeing, we are even likely to exceed that. Because increasingly, more and more investors are showing interest domestically and even from other countries of the world.
Okay.
We have very big pavilion. Okay, China is bullish in Africa,
Of course.
and that is also reflected in our trade fair. They have the biggest pavilion in the trade fair, and they have over 100 exhibitors from China that are there on the trade fair.
So do we have an idea of the percentage of foreign participants as well as the impact on intra-African trade?
Well, the percentage of foreign participants naturally will be around 15 to 20 in terms of exhibitors.
Okay.
But the impact is also significant because, you know, it costs quite a lot of money to go abroad, to go and shop for partners, to know who to do business. But here they are in Nigeria. So it is cheaper for many Nigerians and for many other African countries to come in here and meet them face to face. Because when you meet your potential partner physically, it inspires more confidence than either relating online. And all of them are here with samples of products. And most of the things they brought here are not even necessarily consumer products. There are products that industries can use to build their own capacity. Because what we need now is to build the capacity of this economy, to be more self-reliant. You know, and China is very strong in infrastructure, in machineries and all of that, just as other countries. We have a very big pavilion for US too there. We have for West African countries that Ghana, Cameroon, and all of them are there. So it's quite a very diverse Africa and from Asia, from Europe, and United States.
Okay, well, members of the chamber cut across all sectors. So what kind of feedback have you received in terms of the ease of doing business?
Well, the ease of doing business is still challenging. Just as the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, we have PEBEC, which is chaired by the Vice President. It's a body that is committed to this ease of doing business. But because there are quite a number of rigidities in these issues, it's not something that will happen overnight. There is some progress, incremental, gradual. The ranking has improved over the last 2 years. The World Bank ranking and the World Economic Forum ranking has improved fairly well. But we still have a long way to go. You know, in terms of the soft issues like issues of immigration, issuing of passports, traveling across the airport and all of that, there has been some improvement. You know, the CAC registration of business, SOA, NAFDAC, there has been some improvement in all of that. But there are still very big issues, especially with infrastructure. And that is a major issue for many businesses, either in the service sector or in the production sector. A big issue, infrastructure in terms of power, in terms of logistics, transportation, railway system, and all of that. I mean, you can see what is happening in our ports and access to ports. These are part of infrastructure issues. So we still have a long way to go, but we must acknowledge the little progress that we have made in that area.
Okay, well, before we go, because we don't have much time, I want to talk quickly about the 2019 elections. Of course, there will be an expected focus more on politics than on business. So, of course, companies are getting ready, right, to prepare for the next year. What would you advise these companies to be looking at so that their businesses are not adversely affected?
Well, naturally, transition periods come with some peculiar risks.
Okay.
There are risks of uncertainty. There are risks of possible violence if there are violent or credibility issues with the elections. There are risks of policy changes if there is a change of regime. There are risks of breach of contractual obligations if there's also a change of government or a change of ministers and things like that. These are risks. And business is about managing risks. Okay. So business will identify this kind of agreements with any government because anything can happen.